When Snoop Dogg tried to board his private jet, a security guard's prejudice turned the moment into an unexpected showdown. What unfolded next became a story that left the world stunned and inspired. Before we dive into this compelling story, comment below where you're watching from today. If you find this story as inspiring as we do, don't forget to subscribe for more. Snoop Dogg stood on the balcony of his beachfront mansion, the golden hues of the setting sun reflecting off the endless ocean waves. The city of Skyview stretched before him, a sprawling tapestry of vibrant streets and twinkling lights. This view, a testament to his years of hard work, should have brought him peace. Yet tonight his mind was restless, brimming with thoughts of a monumental decision. Snoop had come a long way from his humble beginnings. His journey from a lanky kid with a microphone to a global music icon and entrepreneur was nothing short of extraordinary. But this next step in his journey wasn't about indulgence or showing off wealth. To Snoop, owning a private jet symbolized freedom, the kind of freedom that allowed him to transcend limitations, expand his ever-growing empire, and most importantly, amplify his philanthropic efforts. His recent visit to Heartland had solidified this dream. Invited to perform at a school struggling with poverty, Snoop had been deeply moved by the children's enthusiasm and determination despite their circumstances. The memory of their wide-eyed smiles and raw, unfiltered hope stayed with him, reminding him of his own childhood. He had once been a boy with big dreams but limited means, just like them. On the flight back, cramped in a commercial plane seat, the idea struck him. What if he had the means to reach more communities and more schools and bring real, tangible support? A private jet would be more than a convenience. It would be a bridge to connect him with people and places in need. The ringing of his phone broke his reverie. Glancing at the screen, he saw Jax's name flash, a familiar presence in his life as both a manager and a close friend. "Snoop, you there?" Jax's brisk voice came through the line. "Yeah, I'm here. Just thinking," Snoop replied, his voice contemplative. "About the jet, right? I know that tone," Jax chuckled knowingly. "So what's the verdict? Are you going for it?" Snoop hesitated for a moment, the weight of the decision pressing on him. Finally, he exhaled. "I think I am. But you know it's not just for me, Jax." "I know," Jax responded, his tone serious now, "but you need to be sure. It's a big investment, and you know people are going to talk. They always do." Leaning against the balcony railing, Snoop let the evening breeze cool his thoughts. Public opinion had never been kind to him. Every move he made was scrutinized. But this decision wasn't about critics or doubters. It was about purpose and vision. "I've thought about it," he said firmly. "But I can't let fear dictate my choices. This isn't about flying in luxury. It's about creating opportunities and breaking barriers. Let them talk. I'll show them what this jet is really for." Jax paused, then replied with approval in his voice. "That's what I wanted to hear. All right, let's make it happen. I'll start pulling some options for you to review." The process of choosing a jet began. For weeks, Snoop threw himself into the details, visiting hangars, consulting with manufacturers, and weighing his options. He immersed himself in a world he had never explored before, finding excitement in every step. Finally, he chose a model that balanced luxury with practicality. It was spacious enough for his team, equipped with cutting-edge technology, and had the range to reach remote communities. When the papers were signed, Snoop felt a surge of pride. The jet wasn't just a purchase, it was a manifestation of his vision. On his first walk aboard, the immaculate leather seats and polished wood accents didn't impress him as much as the possibilities that the plane represented. This was more than a new chapter, it was the beginning of a mission. As the weeks passed, the excitement grew. Snoop meticulously planned the inaugural flight, a packed itinerary to visit communities where he was already making an impact. Standing in his living room the night before, he stared at a framed photo of his younger self, a skinny teenager clutching a microphone, eyes burning with hope. "You've come a long way," he murmured to his reflection. But the work's just beginning. Little did he know the challenges awaiting him would test his resolve and reshape his mission in ways he could never have imagined. The morning of Snoop Dogg's inaugural flight dawned clear and bright, with the sun casting a warm glow over the private airstrip in Skyview. Snoop felt a surge of excitement as his sleek black SUV rolled through the gates of the airfield. This was the day he had been working toward for weeks, and everything felt perfect. As the car approached the hangar, the sight of his jet left him in awe. It gleamed under the sunlight like a beacon of achievement, its streamlined design a testament to both precision and progress. The deep blue and silver accents made it stand out, giving it a regal yet modern appearance. For Snoop, the jet wasn't just a luxury, it was a tool, a promise to himself and others that he was ready to soar higher, both literally and figuratively. When the car came to a stop, Snoop stepped out, adjusting his tailored blazer. The air was crisp, filled with the faint smell of aviation fuel and freshly cut grass. Around him, technicians and crew members moved with practiced efficiency, preparing the plane for its first journey. Walking toward the jet, Snoop took a moment to soak in the scene. This wasn't just a milestone for him, but also a message to anyone who ever doubted his journey. Each step he took toward the plane was a stride toward fulfilling his mission to help others and break barriers. Then came the voice that shattered the tranquility. "Hey you! Hold it right there." Snoop turned, his brow furrowing in confusion. Approaching him briskly was a tall, broad-shouldered security guard. His uniform was crisp, but his demeanor was anything but professional. The man's stern expression and stiff posture exuded hostility. "Can I help you?" Snoop asked, keeping his tone polite despite the unexpected interruption. "This is a private airstrip," the guard replied, his voice sharp and dismissive. "You're not supposed to be here." For a moment, Snoop thought it was a misunderstanding. He gestured toward the jet behind him. "I know. I'm here for my flight. That's my plane." The guard let out a short mocking laugh. "Your plane? That's funny. Now let's see some ID." Snoop felt a wave of irritation but remained composed. He reached into his pocket and handed over his driver's license and a laminated card verifying his ownership of the jet. The guard snatched them from his hand, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized the documents. "This can't be right," the guard muttered, glancing up at Snoop with a look of disbelief. "How exactly did you afford a plane lane like this?" The question, laden with prejudice, hit like a slap. Snoop's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "I worked for it," he said firmly. "Now, if you're done, I'd like to board my plane." The guard, however, didn't budge. Instead, he stepped closer, lowering his voice but not his hostility. "Look, buddy, I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but I've seen this before. You don't belong here." The accusation stung more than the guard's condescending tone. Snoop squared his shoulders, towering over the man, but he refused to raise his voice. "I don't know what you think you've seen," he said, "but this isn't a scam. I own that plane, and I have every right to be here." The guard's expression hardened as he crossed his arms. "We'll see about that," he said, pulling a radio from his belt. "I'm calling the police." Snoop's patience was wearing thin, but he stayed calm. He watched as the guard stepped away, gesturing animatedly while speaking into his radio. Around them, the crew members paused their work, their curious glances adding to the growing tension. Minutes later, the wail of sirens pierced the morning air. 2 police cars pulled up to the scene, their lights flashing. 4 officers stepped out, their hands resting on their belts as they approached. The guard wasted no time, rushing to meet them and pointing toward Snoop as he recounted his version of events. Snoop stood by the jet, his arms crossed, his mind racing. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. This was supposed to be a triumphant moment, but instead it was spiraling into a public humiliation. One of the officers finally approached him. "Sir, we're going to need to see your identification and proof of ownership for the aircraft," the officer said, his tone firm but not as overtly hostile as the guard's. Snoop handed over his documents again, his movements deliberate and controlled. The officer examined them carefully, his brow furrowing. "These look legitimate," he said finally, but his tone carried a note of doubt. "Still, we'll need to verify everything." "You understand." "I understand," Snoop replied, though his patience was wearing thin. "But this is unnecessary. Everything you need is right there." The verification process dragged on, with the officers calling aviation authorities to cross-check the documents. Snoop stood silently, his frustration growing as he noticed the smug expression on the guard's face. The minutes stretched into nearly an hour, each second chipping away at the pride he had felt earlier that morning. Finally, one of the officers returned, handing Snoop his documents. "Everything checks out. You're free to go," the officer said, his tone clipped, as if reluctant to admit it. Snoop took the papers and locked eyes with the officer. "That's it? No apology for wasting my time? For assuming I didn't belong here?" Before the officer could respond, the guard interjected, his smirk still intact. "Look, we were just doing our job. You should be glad we're thorough." "Thorough?" Snoop's voice was calm but carried a sharp edge. "This wasn't thorough. This was profiling, plain and simple, and you know it." The guard's smirk faded, but he didn't reply. The officers exchanged uneasy glances before retreating to their cars. As the vehicles pulled away, Snoop turned back to the jet. The moment that had once felt like a milestone now felt tarnished, a bitter reminder of the prejudice that still lingered. Boarding the plane, Snoop's mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, disappointment, and a growing resolve. As the engines roared to life and the jet began to taxi down the runway, he stared out the window, determined that this wasn't the end of the story. Snoop Dogg sat quietly in the plush leather seat of his private jet, staring out of the window as the sprawling city of Skyview slowly disappeared beneath the clouds. The engines roared softly in the background, but the usual thrill of flight felt distant. His hands rested on the armrests, fingers drumming lightly as his mind replayed the morning's events in agonizing detail. The smug expression on the guard's face, the biting tone in his voice, and the blatant disbelief etched into his every word all cut deeper than Snoop expected. "You don't belong here." The phrase echoed in his head like a bad refrain, each repetition igniting a fresh wave of anger and disbelief. Snoop had dealt with prejudice before. Growing up in tough neighborhoods, he had faced countless challenges and judgments. Even as he rose to fame, the world often saw him through a narrow lens, quick to assign stereotypes and assumptions. But this moment felt different. It wasn't just the humiliation of being doubted, it was the setting, the symbolism of it all. This was supposed to be his triumph. The jet wasn't just a machine, it was a culmination of decades of hard work, a tangible representation of his journey. And yet, in an instant, it had been overshadowed by suspicion and hostility. Snoop let out a slow breath, glancing across the cabin. Jax, his manager and confidant, sat nearby with a tablet in hand, his eyes flickering between the screen and Snoop's face. The silence between them felt heavy, laden with unspoken thoughts. "Snoop," Jax said softly, breaking the quiet. "You good?" Forcing a faint smile, Snoop turned to him. "Yeah, I'm good," he replied, though the tension in his voice betrayed him. Jax tilted his head, studying his friend carefully. "You don't look good," he said, setting the tablet down. "That was a lot back there. I know you're trying to shrug it off, but I can see it's eating at you." Snoop's smile faded, and he looked down at his hands. "It's not the first time," he admitted quietly. "You'd think I'd be used to it by now." "You shouldn't have to be," Jax replied firmly. "You've worked hard for everything you have. That plane? It's yours. You earned it. No one has the right to question that." The words were comforting, but they did little to dull the sting of what had happened. Snoop nodded slightly, but his thoughts continued to swirl. Leaning back, he closed his eyes, and memories from his past began to surface. He thought about his childhood and the struggles of growing up in a world that often underestimated him. One memory stood out vividly: career day in elementary school. He had been 8 years old, standing nervously in front of his classmates. When it was his turn to speak, he had declared with unwavering confidence, "I'm going to be a big-time rapper." The room echoed in laughter. His classmates hadn't believed him, and even his teacher, though kind, had responded with a patronizing smile. "That's a nice dream," she had said, "but maybe you should think of something more realistic." That moment had stayed with him, a bitter reminder of how the world often saw him as less than. And though he had proved them all wrong, the scars of those early doubts hadn't entirely healed. The confrontation with the guard brought all those old wounds to the surface. It wasn't just about the words spoken, it was about the implication, the unspoken belief that no matter how far he had come, he still didn't belong in certain spaces. Jax's voice broke through his thoughts again. "Snoop, what are you going to do about it?" "What do you mean?" Snoop asked, opening his eyes. I mean, are you just gonna let it slide? Jax pressed. About the way they treated you, the way they made you feel like you didn't belong. You could call them out, demand accountability, do something? Or are you just going to move on and pretend it didn't happen? Snoop hesitated. His first instinct was to brush it off, to focus on the positives and keep moving forward. After all, wasn't that how he had survived all these years? By staying resilient and rising above? But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that ignoring it wouldn't make it go away. This wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who had ever been judged unfairly. Everyone who had been made to feel small or unwelcome because of who they were. I don't know yet, he admitted finally. But I can't let it slide. Not this time. Jax nodded, his expression thoughtful. Maybe this is an opportunity, he suggested. A chance to make a statement, to show people that this kind of behavior isn't acceptable. His words planted a seed in Snoop's mind. The anger simmering beneath the surface began to transform into something else. Resolve. The flight continued in silence, but Snoop's thoughts were anything but quiet. He thought about the children he had met in Heartland, the ones who looked up to him as a symbol of hope and possibility. How could he let them down by staying silent? As the plane leveled out, the city lights below fading into a patchwork of roads and fields, Snoop made a decision. He wasn't going to let this moment define him, but he wasn't going to let it pass without meaning either. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. As the plane cruised high above the patchwork of fields and highways below, Snoop Dogg leaned back in his seat, lost in thought. The confrontation at the airstrip replayed in his mind like an unwelcome reel, each detail stirring a fresh wave of frustration. But as the initial sting of humiliation began to fade, a deeper realization took hold. This wasn't just about him. The incident was a stark reminder of a truth he had known all his life. The prejudice and doubt he faced weren't isolated events. They were woven into the fabric of a system that had long marginalized people like him. No matter how successful he became, there would always be those who looked at him and saw only stereotypes, refusing to recognize the hard work and determination that had brought him to this point. Snoop stared out the window at the endless horizon, his reflection superimposed over the clouds. He had always believed in using his platform for more than personal gain. As an artist, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, he had worked tirelessly to give back to his community and to uplift others who faced the same struggles he had once known. But this experience felt different. It wasn't just another hurdle to overcome, it was a call to action. He thought about the children he had met during his visit to Heartland, their wide eyes filled with curiosity and hope. For them, he was more than a celebrity. He was proof that dreams could become reality. They saw in him a version of themselves, someone who had risen above the odds. How could he face them knowing he had let this moment pass without challenging it? Snoop's thoughts turned inward, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the early days, hustling to make a name for himself in an industry that wasn't always welcoming. There were countless nights when he doubted himself, when the obstacles felt insurmountable. One memory in particular stood out, his first major performance. He had been a young rapper with everything to prove, stepping onto a stage in front of an audience that didn't believe in him. The hostility in the air had been palpable, the crowd's skepticism written on their faces. But instead of letting it break him, he had poured his heart into his performance, using their doubt as fuel. By the end of the night, he had won them over, transforming their sneers into cheers. That experience had taught him an invaluable lesson. Every challenge was an opportunity in disguise. It wasn't enough to simply succeed. He had to show others that success was possible, even in the face of adversity. This moment, as painful as it was, held the same potential. The encounter at the airstrip wasn't just about a security guard's prejudice or a police officer's skepticism. It was a microcosm of a larger issue, one that affected countless people who didn't have the privilege of a platform or a voice. As the plane flew on, Snoop began to see the outlines of a plan forming in his mind. He couldn't change the past, but he could shape the future. He could turn his frustration into something meaningful, something that would resonate far beyond this moment. Jax's earlier words echoed in his mind. Maybe this is an opportunity to make a statement, Snoop's determination solidified. He wasn't going to let this experience define him, but he also wasn't going to let it disappear into the void of forgotten injustices. He would use his voice, his resources, and his influence to bring attention to the issue, not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. He thought again about the children in Heartland, and a vision began to take shape. What if he could create something that would not only address the problem, but also inspire others to believe in their own potential? What if he could turn this moment of personal humiliation into a movement of hope and change? The idea felt both daunting and exhilarating. Snoop knew that taking this step would invite scrutiny and criticism, but he also knew it was necessary. He had been given a platform for a reason, and it was time to use it in a way that truly mattered. By the time the plane began its descent, Snoop felt a renewed sense of purpose. The events of the morning were still fresh in his mind, but they no longer felt like a burden. Instead, they had become a catalyst, a turning point that would shape the next chapter of his journey. As the plane touched down in Riverton, Snoop was greeted by a group of local organizers who had been eagerly awaiting his arrival. Their smiles and warm handshakes reminded him of the power of connection, of the importance of standing together in the face of adversity. One of the organizers, a middle-aged woman named Clara, led him to a group of children who had gathered to meet him. Their faces lit up when they saw him, their excitement palpable. Snoop knelt down to their level, listening as they shared their dreams and aspirations. It was moments like these that reminded him why he did what he did. But even as he engaged with the children, the memory of the guard's words lingered in the back of his mind. The injustice of it gnawed at him, refusing to be ignored. Later that evening, as Snoop sat in the back seat of a car en route to his hotel, he pulled out his phone. Opening the camera app, he hesitated for a moment before hitting record. Looking into the lens, he began to speak, his voice steady but charged with emotion. "Today was supposed to be a celebration," he said. "My first flight in my new jet, a symbol of everything I've worked for. But instead, I was met with suspicion, hostility, and doubt, not because I did anything wrong, but because of who I am and how I look." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "This isn't just about me. It's about a system that still judges people by the color of their skin, no matter how far they've come, and it needs to stop." Snoop ended the video with a promise. "This isn't over. I'm going to make sure something good comes out of this, for me, for you, for all of us." As he hit upload and watched the video begin to spread, he felt a sense of clarity. The morning's events had been painful, but they were no longer just a source of anger. They were fuel for action, a catalyst for change. By the time Snoop Dogg arrived at his hotel in Riverton, his video was already gaining traction. Notifications buzzed relentlessly on his phone as messages of support, outrage, and shared experiences flooded his social media feeds. Sitting in the quiet of his room, Snoop felt a strange mix of emotions, vindication, hope, and an underlying tension as he realized the magnitude of what he had started. The video had been raw and unscripted, but it resonated. In it, Snoop spoke candidly about the morning's events, detailing the suspicion and hostility he had faced at the airstrip. He hadn't held back, sharing his frustration not just with what had happened to him, but with the broader issues of systemic prejudice that still plagued society. "This is bigger than me," he had said in the video, his deep voice steady but charged with emotion. "It's about a system that allows this kind of behavior to persist, a system that tells people they don't belong, no matter how far they've come or how hard they've worked. We need to talk about this. We need to demand better." Within hours of hitting upload, the video had gone viral. Millions of views poured in, and the hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack began trending across platforms. Celebrities, activists, and everyday people shared the video, adding their voices to the growing chorus of support. "This is unacceptable," one comment read. "How does this still happen in 2024? Another said, "Snoop, you're an inspiration. Thank you for speaking out and giving a voice to those who don't have one." The responses weren't all positive, though. Alongside the messages of encouragement came a predictable wave of criticism. "Here we go again, playing the victim card," one detractor wrote. "Maybe if he acted like he belonged, this wouldn't have happened." Others accused Snoop of overreacting or fabricating the incident for attention. Typical celebrity drama, another comment sneered. Must be nice to have problems like this. Snoop scrolled through the comments, feeling a flicker of anger at the negativity. But he refused to let the critics get under his skin. He knew he hadn't shared his story with the trolls or the skeptics. He had done it for the people who understood, for those who had faced the same kind of prejudice and needed to see that they weren't alone. Jax entered the room, tablet in hand and a look of awe on his face. "Snoop, you're trending," he said, holding up the screen. "And not just a little. This thing is blowing up." Snoop took the tablet, scanning the analytics. In just a few hours, the video had racked up over 2 million views and counting. Major news outlets had picked up the story, and hashtags like Flying While Black and Snoop Speaks Out were dominating social media. "This is bigger than I expected," Snoop admitted, setting the tablet down. "That's because it's not just about you," Jax said. "This is striking a chord with people. You've opened a door that a lot of folks have been waiting to walk through." Jax's words stayed with Snoop as the day unfolded. The overwhelming support from the public reminded him why he had chosen to share his story. But the backlash also served as a stark reminder of the work that still needed to be done. By evening, the video had taken on a life of its own. It wasn't just a recounting of one man's experience, it had become a rallying cry. Social media lit up with stories from others who had faced similar discrimination, their voices amplifying the conversation. One particularly moving comment came from a young man named Marcus, who worked as a baggage handler at a small regional airport. "I've been passed over for promotions so many times, even though I work twice as hard as everyone else," Marcus wrote. "They always say I don't have the right look for management. Thank you, Snoop, for speaking out. You're giving people like me hope." Reading Marcus's comment, Snoop felt a lump form in his throat. Stories like this were why he had shared his own. It wasn't about seeking sympathy or attention. It was about shining a light on the pervasive inequalities that so many people faced every day. But the momentum didn't stop there. By the next morning, major networks were reaching out, requesting interviews and statements. Jax worked tirelessly to manage the flood of inquiries, coordinating with news anchors, journalists, and publicists. "BCN News wants to do a live interview tomorrow morning," Jax said, scrolling through his phone. "And the Eagle Times is asking for an op-ed. Oh, and Lena Montague's team just emailed. They want you on her show next week." Snoop ran a hand over his face, feeling the weight of it all. "This is a lot," he admitted. "It is," Jax agreed. "But that's because people are listening. This is your chance to make a real difference, Snoop." Snoop nodded, the determination in his chest growing stronger. He had been given a platform for a reason, and he wasn't about to squander it. As the night wore on, Snoop sat in his hotel room, reflecting on the whirlwind of the past 24 hours. He thought about the children in Heartland, about Marcus, about every person who had ever been told they didn't belong. "This isn't over," he murmured to himself, staring out at the city lights beyond the window. The video had sparked a conversation, but Snoop knew the real work was just beginning. The impact of Snoop Dogg's viral video rippled far beyond social media. Within days, the private airstrip where the incident had occurred found itself under intense scrutiny. Public outrage mounted as the video continued to gain traction, with hashtags like #FlyingWhileBlack and Accountability for All trending worldwide. Faced with mounting pressure, the airstrip's management released a statement. While stopping short of a full apology, they acknowledged the incident and expressed regret for any misunderstanding. The statement, however, was met with skepticism by the public. Many viewed it as a surface-level attempt to diffuse tension without addressing the deeper issues of bias and discrimination. But then came the real shift. Under the glare of public scrutiny and calls for accountability, the airstrip announced a mandatory bias training program for all staff. The security guard involved in the incident was quietly dismissed. While these measures were a step in the right direction, Snoop knew they were just the beginning. Sitting in his office, Snoop scrolled through the news updates on his tablet. Headlines proclaimed the changes at the airstrip as a small victory, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to be done. Across the room, Jax was on the phone, juggling a call with yet another organization reaching out to collaborate. "Everyone wants to work with you now," Jack said after hanging up. Activist groups, charities, even a few aviation companies. They're all seeing this as a chance to make some real changes. Snoop nodded, his mind racing. He appreciated the support, but he couldn't ignore the nagging thought that these changes wouldn't last unless they were part of something bigger. Something that could create a lasting impact. That night, as he sat alone, an idea began to take shape. The jet, which had been at the center of the controversy, could become more than a personal symbol of success. What if it could be a tool for good, a way to directly uplift the communities he cared about? His thoughts turned to Heartland, to the children he had met who were so full of potential but so limited by their circumstances. What if his jet could help bridge that gap, bringing opportunities to people and places often overlooked? The idea excited him, and as he jotted down notes on a pad of paper, the concept began to take form. It would be a program that used the jet to provide free flights for those in need. Patients requiring urgent medical care, families seeking reunification during crises, and students pursuing educational opportunities could all benefit. But Snoop didn't want to stop there. He envisioned partnerships with schools, charities, and community organizations to expand the program's reach. The jet could also be a platform for mentorship and inspiration, hosting events that showed young people the possibilities waiting for them if they dared to dream big. The next morning, Snoop shared the idea with Jax. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone serious but energized. "What if we turn this jet into something more? A program that helps people, not just by flying them where they need to go, but by showing them what's possible." Jax's eyes lit up as he listened. "That's brilliant," he said. "It's exactly what we need to turn this moment into a movement." Together, they fleshed out the details, brainstorming names for the initiative and outlining its core mission. By the end of the discussion, the program had a name: Wings of Hope. Wings of Hope would be more than just a charity. It would be a beacon of possibility, a way to transform the pain of the airstrip incident into progress for countless others. Over the next few days, Snoop and Jax began reaching out to potential partners. Hospitals, schools, and nonprofits were quick to express interest, eager to collaborate on what was shaping up to be a groundbreaking initiative. The response was overwhelming. Donations began pouring in from fans, businesses, and even other celebrities who had been inspired by Snoop's story. Aviation experts offered their services, and organizations specializing in mentorship and education reached out to contribute their expertise. One particular message stood out to Snoop. It was from Marcus, the baggage handler who had commented on his video. Marcus wrote that he wanted to help however he could, even if it meant volunteering his time to load supplies or coordinate flights. Reading the message, Snoop felt a surge of pride. Wings of Hope wasn't just an idea anymore. It was becoming a reality, one that people believed in and wanted to be part of. The first mission of Wings of Hope was quickly scheduled. A young girl named Maya from Heartland had been diagnosed with a rare medical condition, and her family couldn't afford the long trip to a specialized children's hospital. Snoop's team arranged for Maya and her mother to take the jet, ensuring they had the care and support they needed along the way. As Snoop prepared for the inaugural flight, he felt a mix of anticipation and resolve. What had started as a moment of humiliation was transforming into something far greater. This was about more than a single incident. It was about creating opportunities, breaking barriers, and proving that adversity could be a catalyst for change. The morning of the flight, Snoop stood by the jet, greeting Maya and her mother as they arrived. Kneeling to Maya's level, he offered her a warm smile. "Are you ready for an adventure?" he asked gently. Maya nodded, clutching a stuffed bear tightly to her chest. Her mother, overwhelmed with gratitude, struggled to find the words to thank him. "You're giving us hope," she said finally, her voice breaking. "That's what this is all about," Snoop replied, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. As they boarded the jet, Snoop felt a profound sense of purpose. This was only the beginning, but it was a step toward something meaningful, something that could inspire others to rise above and reach for the skies. The morning of the inaugural mission for Wings of Hope was crisp and clear. The the sky painted in soft hues of pink and gold as the sun rose over the Heartland airstrip. Snoop Dogg stood by the jet, watching as the ground crew made their final preparations. This wasn't just another day, it was the start of something extraordinary. The sleek jet, now adorned with the Wings of Hope logo, a pair of soaring wings in white against a deep blue backdrop, shone brightly in the morning light. The emblem wasn't just a design, it was a symbol of possibility, of lifting others and giving them a chance to rise above their circumstances. The mission that day was deeply personal. The team had chosen to help Maya, a 7-year-old girl from a rural town in Heartland. Diagnosed with a rare heart condition, Maya required immediate specialized treatment that her local facilities couldn't provide. Her family's limited resources and the long journey to the hospital had made the trip seem almost impossible until Wings of Hope stepped in. Snoop greeted Maya and her mother as they arrived at the airstrip. Maya was a tiny figure, clutching a worn stuffed bear in her arms, her wide eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and nervousness. Her mother looked overwhelmed, her gratitude apparent in every glance and gesture. Kneeling down to meet Maya's gaze, Snoop offered her a warm smile. "Hey there, Maya. I hear you're the bravest little girl in all of Heartland. You ready for your big adventure?" Maya nodded shyly, her small fingers gripping the bear even tighter. "Will we be flying above the clouds?" she asked softly. Snoop chuckled. "We sure will, and let me tell you, the view is going to be amazing." Her mother's voice broke as she struggled to express her thanks. "I don't know how to thank you enough," she said. "You're giving us more than a flight, you're giving us hope." Snoop placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's what Wings of Hope is all about," he said gently. "We're here to make sure Maya gets the care she needs." As they boarded the jet, Maya's initial hesitation gave way to wide-eyed wonder. The immaculate cabin, with its plush leather seats and panoramic windows, was a stark contrast to anything she had ever known. Snoop took a seat next to her and pointed out the various controls and features, answering her endless questions with patience and humor. When the edges roared to life, Maya's face lit up. As the jet lifted off the ground, she gasped, staring out the window as the world below transformed into a patchwork of fields and forests. "Look, Mommy, we're flying!" she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. Snoop smiled, leaning back in his seat. For Maya, this wasn't just a journey to the hospital. It was a moment of magic, a chance to see the world from a perspective she had never imagined. The flight itself was smooth and uneventful, but its significance was profound. Maya's mother spent much of the journey talking with members of the Wings of Hope team, sharing her story and expressing her gratitude. For Snoop, the flight was a confirmation of everything he had envisioned when he first conceived of the program. When the jet touched down at the Skyview Children's Hospital, a team of medical staff was waiting on the tarmac, ready to escort Maya and her mother to their next destination. But before she left, Maya turned back and waved at Snoop, her smile wide and radiant. "Thank you, Mr. Snoop," she called out, her voice filled with genuine joy. "You're welcome, Maya," he replied, waving back. "You've got this, kiddo." The mission was a resounding success, but its impact extended far beyond Maya and her family. News of the flight quickly spread, thanks to a post from Snoop's team documenting the journey. Pictures of Maya boarding the jet, videos of her marveling at the clouds, and heartfelt messages from her mother captured the hearts of millions. Within hours, the story went viral. The hashtag Wings of Hope began trending, and donations poured in from individuals and organizations moved by the mission's purpose. Celebrities reached out, offering their support, while aviation companies expressed interest in partnering with the program. "This is what the world needs," one commenter wrote. "Real action, real change. Thank you, Snoop, for showing us what's possible." Another said, "Maya's story is a reminder of the power of kindness. Let's keep this momentum going." The overwhelming response reaffirmed Snoop's belief in the program. Wings of Hope wasn't just a one-time effort, it was the start of a movement. As more donations and partnerships flowed in, the program began to take shape in ways Snoop hadn't initially imagined. Hospitals reached out, requesting assistance for patients in need of critical care. Schools and charities proposed collaborations to provide educational opportunities for underserved communities. One particularly exciting development was an offer from a major aviation company to provide additional aircraft for the program. With their support, Wings of Hope could expand its reach, offering more flights and impacting even more lives. Snoop sat in his office, reviewing the latest updates with Jax. The two shared a quiet moment of satisfaction, knowing that they were on the cusp of something transformative. "We're just getting started," Snoop said, his voice filled with determination. Jax nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "This is going to be big, bigger than we ever thought." But for Snoop, the measure of success wasn't in the size of the program or the number of partnerships. It was in moments like the one he'd shared with Maya, moments where hope was restored and lives were changed. As the sun set over Skyview, casting a golden glow over the jet, Snoop felt a renewed sense of purpose. Wings of Hope was more than a response to injustice. It was a symbol of resilience, compassion, and the power of turning pain into progress. And it was only the beginning. Wings of Hope was no longer just a program, it had become a movement. The inaugural mission captured the hearts of millions, sparking a wave of support and inspiring people worldwide. For Snoop Dogg, it was the realization of a vision he had barely dared to dream. But the true impact of the program extended far beyond the flights themselves. As the donations poured in and partnerships expanded, Snoop found himself thinking about how Wings of Hope could do more than just provide aid. It could plant seeds of inspiration. His mind kept returning to the kids he had met in Heartland, their faces lit with curiosity and wonder. Many of them had dreams but lacked the resources or encouragement to pursue them. Wings of Hope, he realized, could be the bridge they needed. One day during a brainstorming session with his team, an idea struck him. "What if we turned the jet into a classroom?" he asked. Jax raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A classroom? You mean like lessons in the air?" "Exactly," Snoop said, his voice growing with excitement. "We could invite students from underserved communities, give them a chance to see the world from above, show them what's possible. We'd bring in mentors, people from different fields, and have real conversations about chasing dreams." The idea quickly took shape, and within weeks, the first classroom in the sky was organized. Snoop's team reached out to schools in Riverton and Heartland, inviting students to participate in the program. The selection process prioritized those who showed passion and potential but lacked opportunities. On the day of the first event, a group of 20 high school students gathered at the private airstrip. For many of them, it was their first time near an airplane. They were dressed in their best clothes, their excitement barely contained as they boarded the jet. The cabin, usually reserved for business or charitable missions, had been transformed. Tables were set with notebooks and pens, and each seat came with a folder filled with inspiring stories of people who had overcome adversity to achieve their goals. As the plane taxied down the runway and lifted into the sky, the students gasped at the view below. The sprawling city of Riverton quickly turned into a patchwork of fields and forests, and for a moment, the cabin was filled with awed silence. Once the jet leveled out, Snoop stood at the front of the cabin, a microphone in hand. "Welcome to Wings of Hope's first ever flight school," he said, grinning. "Today isn't just about flying, it's about dreaming. You're all here because you've got something special, and I want to talk about how you can turn that something into everything." For the next hour, the students listened intently as Snoop shared his story. He talked about his humble beginnings, the challenges he had faced, and the moments when he had been told his dreams were impossible. At the end of the day, he said, "It doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where you're going and how much you believe in yourself." After Snoop's speech, the students broke into smaller groups, each led by a mentor from a different field. There were pilots, engineers, entrepreneurs, and artists, all eager to share their journeys and answer questions. One student, a quiet but bright-eyed boy named Malik, caught Snoop's attention. Malik had been sitting near the window, his gaze fixed on the clouds outside. During the small group session, Snoop made a point to join Malik's table. "Malik," Snoop said, taking a seat across from him, "what's your dream?" Malik hesitated, his eyes darting nervously between Snoop and the table. Finally, he said in a quiet voice, "I want to be a pilot." Snoop's grin widened. "That's a great dream. What's stopping you?" Malik looked down, his voice barely above a whisper. It's expensive, and people like me don't become pilots. The words hit Snoop hard, reminding him of his own doubts as a kid. He leaned forward, his tone serious but encouraging. Listen to me, Malik. Don't ever let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. Do you want to be a pilot? Then go for it. There are programs, scholarships, and people who want to help you succeed. And Wings of Hope? We're going to make sure you get there. Snoop handed Malik a card with the Wings of Hope logo on it. This is your starting point, he said. Reach out to us and we'll connect you with the resources you need. Deal? Malik's eyes filled with tears as he nodded, clutching the card like a lifeline. For the first time, he felt like his dream was within reach. The event ended with Snoop addressing the group one last time. You've seen the world from up here, he said, gesturing to the windows. Now I want you to take that view and let it shape your dreams. The sky isn't the limit, it's just the beginning. As the jet descended back to Riverton, the students chattered excitedly about the experience, their faces glowing with inspiration. Many of them wrote thank you letters to Snoop afterward, sharing how the event had impacted their outlook on life. Malik's story, however, didn't end there. True to his word, he reached out to Wings of Hope, and with Snoop's help, he was connected to a mentorship program for aspiring pilots. Over the next few months, Malik flourished, enrolling in flight school and earning his first set of wings. When Malik sent Snoop a photo of himself in a pilot's uniform, the rapper couldn't help but smile. It was moments like this that reminded him why Wings of Hope mattered. The classroom in the sky became a regular event, each one inspiring a new group of young dreamers. For Snoop, it wasn't just about flying high, it was about lifting others with him, proving that with the right support and determination, anything was possible. The success of Wings of Hope had exceeded even Snoop Dogg's most ambitious expectations. What began as a heartfelt response to a moment of personal injustice had blossomed into a movement touching lives across the nation. The program quickly grew from a single jet, offering flights of assistance, to a multifaceted initiative that provided opportunities in education, mentorship, and technical training. Bookmark, with donations pouring in and new partnerships forming daily, Wings of Hope expanded its reach. Aviation companies offered additional aircraft, allowing the program to conduct more missions. Pilots volunteered their time, eager to contribute to something meaningful, while educators and engineers stepped forward to create pathways for young people interested in pursuing careers in STEM fields. Snoop's team also worked to establish local hubs in key cities like Riverton, Skyview, and Heartland, ensuring that the program could serve a wider range of communities. Each hub became a center for outreach, hosting workshops, scholarship programs, and career fairs to connect underserved individuals with opportunities they might never have imagined. One of the program's newest initiatives focused on technical training. Recognizing that many young people lacked access to resources for hands-on education, Snoop partnered with vocational schools and technical institutes to offer scholarships and apprenticeships. These programs gave students the tools to succeed in fields like aviation maintenance, engineering, and programming, industries where skilled workers were in high demand. For Snoop, this expansion was deeply personal. He remembered his own struggles growing up, when opportunities seemed out of reach and dreams felt more like fantasies. Wings of Hope, he realized, wasn't just about providing help. It was about empowering people to believe in themselves and their potential. One memorable moment came during the launch of a mentorship program in Skyview. Snoop stood on a stage at a local community center, addressing a packed room of students, parents, and volunteers. "I know what it feels like to think the odds are stacked against you," he said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "But I'm standing here today to tell you that your circumstances don't define your future. Your determination does. Wings of Hope isn't just about giving back, it's about lifting up. We're here to show you that anything is possible if you believe in yourself and keep pushing forward." The room erupted in applause, but Snoop wasn't interested in the accolades. For him, the true reward was in seeing the faces of the young people in the audience, faces filled with hope, determination, and the beginnings of belief. As the program expanded, so did its impact. Stories of transformation poured in from every corner. There was the young girl from Riverton who had dreamed of becoming a doctor but lacked the resources to pursue her education. Thanks to a Wings of Hope scholarship, she was now attending medical school. There was the father from Heartland who had been separated from his family due to a natural disaster and reunited with their help. And there was Malik, the aspiring pilot whose journey continued to inspire everyone involved with the program. The ripple effect of these stories reached far beyond the individuals directly impacted. They sparked conversations about inequality, resilience, and the power of community, encouraging others to step forward and make a difference in their own ways. Despite the program's rapid growth, Snoop remained grounded. He personally attended as many events as he could, often sitting with students and families to hear their stories and share his own. His presence was a reminder that Wings of Hope wasn't just a charity, it was a reflection of his values and a testament to what could be achieved through compassion and determination. One evening, after a particularly busy day of meetings and events, Snoop sat in his office reviewing a stack of letters from program participants. Each one was a testament to the impact Wings of Hope had made. A letter from a high school senior named Alina caught his eye. She wrote about how the mentorship program had given her the confidence to pursue a degree in aerospace engineering. "Before Wings of Hope, I never thought someone like me could make it in a field like this," she wrote. "But now, I know I belong. Thank you for showing me that my dreams are worth chasing." Snoop leaned back in his chair, a smile tugging at his lips. Moments like these made all the effort worthwhile. But he also knew the work was far from over. The challenges facing underserved communities were complex and deeply rooted, and Wings of Hope was just one piece of the puzzle. To create lasting change, it would take the collective efforts of individuals, organizations, and policymakers. During an interview with a major news outlet, Snoop reflected on the journey so far. "I'm proud of what we've accomplished," he said. "But this isn't about me. It's about the people we're helping and the communities we're building. Wings of Hope is a reminder that when we come together, we can achieve incredible things. And we're just getting started." His words resonated with viewers, sparking renewed interest and support for the program. Social media buzzed with stories of people inspired by Wings of Hope, many of them pledging to contribute to the cause or start their own initiatives. Through it all, Snoop remained focused on the heart of the mission, to lift others up and remind them of their worth. He often ended his speeches and interviews with a simple but powerful message: "Dream big, stay kind, and keep going. The sky isn't the limit. It's just the beginning." As the sun set over Skyview one evening, casting a warm glow over the bustling Wings of Hope headquarters, Stoops by the window, watching as another jet prepared for takeoff. The hum of its engines and the glow of the runway lights filled him with a deep sense of fulfillment. The program had come a long way, but Snoop knew there was still so much more to do. As the jet disappeared into the horizon, carrying another mission of hope and possibility, he smiled. The journey wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The night sky over Skyview was clear, stars sparkling like diamonds against the vast expanse of black. Snoop Dogg stood on the tarmac, his hands in his pockets, gazing up at the heavens. Behind him, the Wings of Hope jet was being prepared for its next mission, its logo gleaming in the glow of the runway lights. The scene was both humbling and inspiring, a reminder of how far the journey had come and the endless possibilities that still lay ahead. It had been nearly a year since the confrontation at the private airstrip that sparked this movement. What began as a moment of anger and humiliation had transformed into something far greater, a testament to the power of resilience, compassion, and determination. Snoop reflected on the path that had brought him here, from a child with big dreams and little means to an artist who defied the odds, and now a leader of change. Standing there, he couldn't help but think about the lessons he had learned along the way. Life, he realized, was less about the challenges you faced and more about how you chose to respond to them. Adversity wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something new. A chance to create, to rebuild, to rise. The work of Wings of Hope exemplified that belief. Each mission, each scholarship, and each mentorship was a brick in the foundation of a better future for someone who needed it. And while the program had grown beyond anything he could have imagined, its core mission remained unchanged: to lift others up and show them that their dreams mattered. Snoop turned as Jax approached, holding a tablet with updates on the latest initiatives. "We've got some big news," Jax said, his voice tinged with excitement. "The global expansion plan? It's officially greenlit. The first international missions are set to launch next month." Snoop nodded, a smile spreading across his face. Wings of Hope was about to reach even further, bringing aid and inspiration to communities across the world. But despite the program's growing scale, Snoop never lost sight of its roots. "It's not about the numbers, Jax," he said thoughtfully. "It's about the people. As long as we keep that at the center of everything, we're doing it right." Jax grinned. "And that's why it works, because it's always been about the people." The two stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching as the crew loaded supplies onto the jet. Then Jax glanced at Snoop. "You've got that university speech tomorrow? Ready to inspire the next generation?" Snoop chuckled. "Always." Bookmark. The next day, Snoop stood on the stage of a packed auditorium at a university in England. The room buzzed with energy as students from diverse backgrounds eagerly awaited his words. The lights dimmed slightly, focusing on the towering figure at the podium. "Thank you," Snoop began, his deep voice resonating through the hall. "Thank you for having me here. But tonight isn't about me. It's about us. It's about what we can achieve when we refuse to let fear, doubt, or prejudice define us." He shared his story, starting with his humble beginnings, weaving through his journey in the music industry and leading to the pivotal moment at the airstrip. He spoke candidly about the pain of that experience, but also about the choice he made to turn it into something meaningful. "That moment could have broken me," he admitted. "It could have left me bitter, angry, and defeated. But instead, I asked myself, how can I make this matter? How can I turn this into something that lifts others up?" Snoop highlighted the work of Wings of Hope, sharing stories of lives changed and dreams realized. He talked about Malik, who had once thought becoming a pilot was impossible and was now on track to earn his commercial pilot's license. He talked about Maya, whose medical journey inspired countless others to believe in the power of kindness and community. "But this isn't just about Wings of Hope," he continued. "It's about all of us. It's about recognizing that we each have the power to create change, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. Whether it's through a grand gesture or a small act of kindness, we can all make a difference." The audience listened intently, many nodding in agreement. Snoop's words weren't just inspiring, they were a call to action. "I want to leave you with this," he said, his tone firm but hopeful. "Adversity isn't the end of your story. It's a chance to write a new chapter. It's a chance to prove to yourself and the world that you're more than the challenges you face. So dream big, stay kind, and keep going, because the sky isn't the limit, it's just the beginning." The room erupted into applause, students rising to their feet in a standing ovation. Snoop looked out at the sea of faces, each one filled with hope and determination. This was why he did what he did. Later that night, back in his hotel room, Snoop reflected on the day. The messages he had shared, the lives he had touched, it all felt like a culmination of the journey he had started long ago. But it was also a reminder that the work was far from over. As he gazed out at the city lights, he smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Wings of Hope wasn't just a program or a response to injustice, it was a symbol of what was possible when you combine passion with purpose. It was a testament to the power of turning pain into progress, of transforming challenges into opportunities. The journey would continue, one flight, one mission, one life at a time. And as the stars sparkled above, Snoop knew in his heart that the best was yet to come. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Did it inspire you? Let us know by commenting 1 if it resonated or 0 if it didn't. Your feedback helps us create the content you care about most. And don't stop there. Share your own stories with us. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the meaningful tales we have coming your way. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We can't wait to hear from you.